Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. In our remaining segment now, let's remind you to go to tarpley.net. Got to check in several times a week. And if you haven't bought any of those books, you got to buy them. Surviving the Cataclysm in particular, described as a life-changing experience by at least one reader. You want to be a sophisticated analyst and understand what's going on in the world, or do you want to be simply an easy dupe or gull for various schools of propaganda? I recommend Surviving the Cataclysm and the other books that are there. The theory coming from privatizer Ryan and other reactionary Republicans is that we need tax cuts for the rich, because the rich people, and this is Sean Hannity, Limbaugh, and the rest of the reactionary parrot chorus every day on the radio, rich people are critical because rich people use their money to invest to create jobs. And remember, the Bush tax cuts for the rich of 2001 carried a title of the bill was that it was a job creation bill. The reason we were cutting the tax rates for the top 1% and giving them this 75-1 advantage over the bottom fifth was that rich people invest and they create jobs, right? Trickle-down economics. The problem is they don't. This is the idiot crackpot premise which has got to be exposed. Rich people today do not, 99 times out of 100, do not invest to create jobs. If you're rich today and you have money, what do? You take it to Goldman Sachs and you buy derivatives. You buy Abacus. You buy whatever the other titles of these crazy collateralized debt obligations were. Or you can place some bets. This is not ownership, but betting. It's betting which does not create any jobs. You can bet on Greek government bonds with a collateralized, with a credit default swap. Or you can put your money into a structured investment vehicle, one of the SIBs, basically a kind of a hedge fund in your own pocket. Or the really rich people give their money to hedge funds, and they try to use arbitrage and high-frequency trading and God knows what. None of this creates any jobs. This is the problem. The only time, generally speaking, that the rich actually invest to create industrial plant and equipment and new jobs on any interesting scale is if you have essentially got the tax code and the other regulations and laws in the economy rigged so that they will do that. In other words, you've got to get them to the point where they look at derivatives and say, no, I can't make as much on the derivatives. I'm actually going to put the money into industrial employment. The problem is today that speculative investments are so much more profitable. They're not taxed at all in many cases, and they're so much more profitable and attractive than actually creating plant and equipment that nobody in his right mind is going to create plant and equipment. You've got to essentially tilt the playing field so that these rich people will be impelled, not compelled, but impelled, right, with persuasion. They're going to see that it's better for them in terms of their immediate greedy interest to put it into industrial employment, and then they'll do it. But even that, of course, is not going to be enough to create an economic recovery. There's got to be a government role. There's got to be a government program which takes the lead in this so that you can get the entire thing going. Build the 100 nuclear reactors, build the 100 hospitals, start the 50,000 miles of high-speed rail, rebuild the entire interstate highway system. Don't let it relapse into gravel. So this is the really one of the key premises of the entire privatizer Ryan reactionary Republican world outlook. So therefore, we would say stop these Bush tax cuts for the super rich, right? For the people above 250,000, that's fine. But that doesn't, of course, that's not going to get you a recovery. I would just point to this very interesting book called Invisible Hands. If you look at the Tea Party of today, you will find the rhetoric, right? All the stuff about free market, laissez-faire, private enterprise, economic freedom, The Constitution, understood as Jefferson read it, right? And it's the Constitution before Jefferson was confronted with the real world in the form of the Louisiana Purchase and other things that he had to do that were not any of the enumerated powers, right? Even Jefferson had to junk his own doctrine as soon as he was faced with the real world. But this rhetoric, right, the Jeffersonian constitutional claptrap, the anti-state, anti-bureaucracy, anti-union, anti-tax, and again, anti-tax independent of who's getting taxed, right? More taxes on wage earner income? No. But a Tobin tax on Wall Street? Yes, 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 1,000 times. Yes. Remember that laissez-faire, free enterprise, free market, is a slogan used by reactionaries when they're out of power to get back into power. Don't be a dupe. Don't be a sucker. So where does this stuff come from? It's mainly the Roosevelt haters. It's the cliques of wealthy malefactors and sociopaths who gathered in the Liberty League, the American Liberty League, the Foundation for Economic Education. You have people like Leonard Read, William Mullendorf. These people were in the Alf Landon campaign of 1936. This was a Republican oil executive who, like Bush, had become a governor. He'd become governor of Kansas, not Texas, but the same difference. We had the Literary Digest polling of 1936 saying that Landon was going to defeat Franklin D. Roosevelt by 2-1. I think some of these Republican polls are in the same ballpark today. Also, the National Association of Manufacturers, and then ultimately the Austrian School. This is the Mount Pelerin Society, right? The infamous meeting of the Mount Pelerin Society in Vevey, Switzerland in 1947, attended by von Hayek, attended by Milton Friedman, and the money for this coming from the reactionary Volcker Fund, Volker fund, and it means that for decades, right, for the past, 60, 70 years, you've got these reactionary right-wing businessmen, bankers, speculators, oligarchs, massively endowing chairs in the economics departments of universities and places like the Heritage Foundation, the American Enterprise Institute, the Cato Institute, and so on. There's a proliferation of all these things. What are they pushing? They're pushing neo-feudal economics. In the case of von Hayek, it's actually very interesting. Von Hayek is a neo-feudalist to the core. He's coming from the Habsburg capital of Vienna, and you can see the main influences on him are John Locke of Britain, right? And I've actually proven, I think, that Locke's essay on human understanding is essentially a plagiarized expansion of Paolo Sarpi's Art of Thinking Well, the Venetian leader Paolo Sarpi of the early 1600s, then taken over by Locke in the later part of that century. You have Mandeville's Fable of the Bees and Adam Smith, right, promoted, of course, by Lord Shelburne, William Petty, the Earl of Lansdowne. Hayek is a neo-feudalist. He's also got a very soft spot for de Tocqueville and for Lord Acton on the British side. So these are the feudal relics and feudal aristocratic residues that had persisted into the 19th and 20th centuries, had been revivified by social Darwinism, and then brought back today. The neo-feudalism is their hatred of the modern state. Right? If you go back to the origins of the modern state, you'll find it's Gian Galeazzo Visconti in Milan in the late 1300s. His program is to provide debt relief to poor farmers who are being exploited and victimized by local feudal barons. The mentality of the feudal baron lives on in the Austrian school, the Hayeks, the Mises, and the Rockwell Institute, of course. This is all neo-feudalism. There's an interesting question. The Liberty League fell flat. How come we have the Tea Party gathering somewhat more support today with the ideology that they now have? It's because we have more non-productive elements in this society. We've got more brokers, salesmen, white-collar administrators, and so forth. Those are the people to whom this kind of stuff appeals. They're basically the Perot voter, and then add in the retired military. Well, we'll have more to say about this in the meantime, but for now, the Tobin tax. Tax Wall Street. Make Wall Street pay their share. Save civilization. Don't let the lights go out all over the United States. We won't see them put back on in our generation. Tax the banks. And we'll see you next week.